to discuss the FEMA clergy response teams again. We did talk about this in depth last time, but just for anybody who may not have heard last time, Mark, tell us about that.
Yeah, okay. The FEMA clergy response team was, we don't know what happened to it at this point. We know it still exists, but we think it's under NVOAD. It'd be NVOAD. And so, but the FEMA clergy response team, a whistleblower came out back in 2006, and we had tens upon tens of thousands of pastors across the United States signed up for this, and it bothered this guy because what they were doing was they were going to skew Romans 13, which says you have to submit to civil government, and the pastors were agreeing to basically spying on their congregation and turning it into the government. Mm-hmm. Well, when the government came to round them up, which they were going to do, it was the pastor's responsibility under the FEMA clergy response team to get their sheep, their congregation, to submit their guns and to submit to the civil government in the roundup. And the clergy would be there to console you when they took you to government intern camps and they separated you from your families. Now, that to me is the highest form of treason that you could possibly get, because your pastor is supposed to be the one that you can absolutely trust no matter what. Like kind of Q says, the ones you trust the most. Mm-hmm. But these guys are behind the scenes spying on their congregation. We already have some AI stuff going in some churches, facial recognition stuff going in churches. I think it's called ChurchX, Church IX. People can look that up. These churches are tracing and tracking. They're part of the tracing and tracking stuff with COVID. So this is why I tell people, if you have to sign something or you're walking into a church where they're logging this, who's logging this information? Who's capturing this information? Who's using it? When you walk in with the tracing and tracking or the facial recognition, these guys are not your friends right now, guys. If your churches are doing this. So, but we don't know. I've always wanted the list of names that are on that FEMA clergy response team. Nobody's been able to give it, but the guy who did the original interview had the documentation and had the handout of what the guidelines of the clergy response team and what they were supposed to do. But they will skew Romans 13, saying you got to submit to civil government. They use the Bible. Nowhere did Jesus Christ submit to civil government, ever. He fought it. You know what I mean? So.
All right. We had somebody in the chat had, I lost it. Hold on. Well, when it comes down to everything that's going on with the president, you got a lot of people in the chat, people out in the world who are still very worried about things. They're worried about the president's safety. They're worried about whether or not he's going to be compromised. I saw somebody actually ask if they thought it was possible that the president might be taken out and might be used as by the Antichrist, to trick us.
Yeah, no.
So I mean, I want to get your take on it, just because we know how we feel, but there's still people out there who are wavering.
Right. So this is why I tell people, be careful who you listen to, because there's too many YouTubers out there that are putting garbage out there right now, trying to pull people away from that. I get the emails every single day. Trump's not going anywhere. God's hand is upon him. He will not be assassinated. He's going to serve 2 terms. He will get in with flying colors, I believe, this next election. There will be another Trump in the White House at some point down the road. When that is, I do not know, but I know it's coming. So, I mean, God gave me that dream about Don Jr. I went public with that, and it was like 48 hours after I went public with it, he announced he was thinking about running for political office. Because when God gave me the dream, I saw him, and I didn't see him, but I knew it was JFK Jr. Now, I'm not saying JFK Jr. is alive or dead. I just think God was putting an emphasis on the junior. Now, could it be a junior ticket? Yes, it could be. It could be a junior that hasn't come on the scene yet. It could be Mike Flynn Jr. It's something like that. So this is where you have to be careful with the prophetic. You have to be really careful with it. So, Trump's not going anywhere. Nothing's going to happen to Trump.
Good. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear you reinstate that. All right. Now, as far as the next Trump, do you think that 100% it's Don Jr.? Do you think that there's any possibility it could be other people? Because I see a lot of people kind of pushing for Ivanka. I'm a little nervous about the idea of Ivanka getting into politics, because she's a lot more to the left than President Trump or anybody else in the family appears to be.
She could be the first female president at some point. I don't know. It could be Barron down the road. It could be Eric. It could be a dynasty for all I know. I don't know. God hasn't taken me that far down the road yet. I just know there's another Trump coming. And when he showed me Junior, maybe he's the first one to kind of go in there, the next one. He's on deck, in other words. I don't know. But when that is, I don't know.
I personally think that makes the most sense. Yeah, I can definitely get on board with that. Now, I want to get your thoughts and feelings on Mike Pence, because Pence is a very divisive figure in this whole play. I've often said that President Trump has a habit of keeping his friends close and his enemies closer. So regardless of if Pence is a black hat or a white hat, to me, it doesn't matter. President Trump has him there to fulfill a role. I think initially it was, pretty obvious that Pence was there to supply the evangelical vote. He was there to shore up a certain portion of the base. I don't think that's necessary this time around. I think that whether or not you're strong in faith or not, I mean, you look at President Trump, if you're conservative, then you can honestly say President Trump is the best man for the job. We need him there for another 4 years. But what is your personal feelings about Mike Pence? What do you get from him?
I don't know, because everybody asks me he's a white hat or a black hat. That part I do not know. God has not shown me anything on that. I will say this. I do believe, and he has been showing me this kind of here in the last month or two, that he will not be president. Mm-hmm. Now, there's been a lot of people say that he's going to come in after President Trump. I don't think the guy's going to be president. I really don't, from what I'm sensing and what I'm seeing right now. I just don't see him as president material. It just doesn't ring in my spirit. You know what I mean? Now, again, could he? Anything's possible at this point. But I just don't think the guy's going to be president at this point. That's just my humble opinion. That's just what I'm sensing right now at this point. After Trump, I think it's going to be somebody else at this point. He just doesn't have it in him, if you know what I mean.
No, I completely agree with you. Pence is not presidential material.
Thank you.
After we've had 4 years, and now we're going to have another 4 years of President Trump. President Trump is a strong figure. He gets up on stage, he commands it, he knows how to work a crowd,
right.
He knows what he's doing for the country, he makes great decisions. I think his instincts are on point, and I think that the only person that we can have after President Trump is going to be another Trump. I think Don Jr. would be an excellent choice, and I don't see Mike Pence giving anybody a run for their money at all.
No, not. I mean, he is. Again, when you look at him, I mean, I'm not slamming the guy, but when you look at him, he's just not presidential material. Mm-hmm. He's just not.
I mean, he's a decorative piece, I mean, he's akin to a vase on the mantle. President Trump comes in and he's working the room. Pence is just there in the background.
Right, and if Pence were to become president, I hate to say it this way, but it's just truth. If Pence became president or tried to become president, or if he ran for president, honestly, he would hand it back over to the deep state. Mm-hmm. Because I don't think he would have the only way that people would get behind him is because the Patriots would probably think, well, this is the best choice that we have. We'd go back to that mentality. Mm-hmm. This is the best choice we have, so let's just vote for this guy. You know what I mean? Kind of like during the Romney election, or even when McCain ran. We didn't know any better. This is the best choice we had. It would be one of those scenarios where if you put a Trump in there, oh no, that's going to be the scenario right there.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Now, again, for any of the naysayers out in the audience, do you have any reservations about anything going into this election?
They're going to do everything they can to stop this election. They're going to do everything they can to steal the election. Now, we know Q's already said that they've got the electronic stuff stored up pretty much, shored up, which is why they're wanting the mail-in votes. Now, everybody was upset when Trump came out with a mask on. You know what I mean? It was just it's like, look, there's always more to what this president does. He's always 10 steps ahead of everybody. And then somebody came out when we were talking about where he's wearing it because he's forcing the Democrats into a corner. And it was, it was beautiful, spot on, whoever got that. And it was like he's painting them in a corner because, okay, so I'm going to make it where you have to say you wear a mask. So now you wear a mask to go vote so that now you don't have an excuse. So the mail-in voting gets canceled out. You have to show up in person. And if you show up in person with a mask on, you can't be ID'd. So now you have to have voter ID. Mm-hmm. So he's painting them in a corner.
All right, looks like Matt